Copenhagen is often described as one of the world's most livable cities. And the evidence appears as soon as you step outside the airport. The metro arrives every few minutes. The platforms are spotless. And within 15 minutes, you're in the historic center without hearing a single car horn. For visitors, this efficiency feels almost surprising. For locals, it is simply how the city works. Everything is planned to make daily life easy, healthy, and predictable. The clearest example is the relationship between cyclists and cars. Copenhagen isn't a city where a few people choose to bike. It's a place where more than half of all trips to work or school happen on two wheels. Dedicated bike lanes run beside almost every major street, wide enough for several cyclists to move at once. In the early morning, you see commuters riding in steady lines. Heads down, scarves wrapped tightly, the sound of gears clicking in rhythm. Cars wait behind designated lines, giving bikes priority. Drivers expect cyclists. Cyclists trust the system. The whole flow feels calm, almost automatic. But the city's design goes beyond movement. Copenhagen is built around water, and the Danes use it in ways that surprise many visitors. The harbor, once industrial and polluted, is now clean enough for swimming. On summer mornings, office workers jump into the chilly water before starting their day. The harbor baths are public, free, and safe, with lifeguards watching over families, teenagers, and early morning swimmers. Even in winter, a few locals step down the metal ladders, dip briefly, and rush back to the sauna, leaving clouds of steam behind them. From the harbor, it's a short walk to Nyhavn, the 17th century canal lined with colorful houses and wooden boats. It is one of the most photographed spots in Denmark, and although it can get busy, it remains a perfect orientation point. Restaurants open their terraces early, setting out blankets for guests because Danes sit outside even in cold weather. The smell of roasted coffee mixes with the salty air coming from the canal, and boats creak gently against their ropes. Move a few streets away and you reach the city lakes, a series of long, narrow basins that split central Copenhagen from the districts of Nørrebro and Frederiksberg. Locals run along the gravel paths, parents push strollers, and groups of friends sit on the edge with takeaway pastries. In the late afternoon, the surface of the water often turns completely still, creating sharp reflections of the apartment blocks and trees around it. The lakes are not dramatic landscapes, but they show how the city integrates calm spaces into busy areas. Another thing visitors notice immediately is the sound, or rather, the lack of it. Copenhagen feels quiet. There are no loud engines, no aggressive honking, and even the construction sites are organized behind clean fences that reduce noise. Cafes open peacefully in the morning, placing fresh cinnamon rolls in the windows. Grocery stores avoid blasting music. Streets are swept daily. This calm atmosphere doesn't feel forced. It's the outcome of long-term planning focused on people, not traffic. Exploring the city is easy and doesn't require a car. The metro is fast and fully automatic. Ferries run along the harbor, connecting neighborhoods like islands Brygge, Refn, and Refshaleøen. Walking is one of the best ways to understand Copenhagen's rhythm. Narrow streets in the old town, wide pedestrian-only areas around Stroje, and residential zones where playgrounds replace parking lots. Every route reveals the same priority, making the city comfortable for daily life. There are countless small visual moments that define Copenhagen more than any landmark. Cyclists, moving in silent waves across Dronning Louise's Bro. Locals sitting along the harbor with their feet dangling above the water. Children learning to ride tiny bikes, while their parents watch from benches. Workers taking a swim during lunch break. These scenes give the city its character, more than any big attraction. In Copenhagen, the visitor doesn't feel like an outsider. The urban design naturally pulls you into local routines, walking instead of driving, choosing a bike without thinking twice, stopping by the water to rest, starting the day with a pastry and a quiet morning street. The city shows how a capital can function smoothly when built around one simple principle, that everyday life should feel easy, human, and accessible. When people talk about Danish design, they usually imagine clean lines, pale wood, and minimalist furniture. But the real meaning goes deeper. Danish design is built on three principles: function, simplicity, and craftsmanship. Every object has to work well, look calm, and be made to last for decades. A chair is not created to stand out. It is created to support the body comfortably for a long time. A lamp is not designed to attract attention. It is made to provide soft light that doesn't strain the eyes. This attitude shapes everything from furniture to bicycles, buildings, and even kitchen tools. The mid-20th century was the turning point. Designers like Hans J. Wegner, Arne Jacobsen, Borge Mogensen, and Finn Juhl took everyday objects and refined them until nothing unnecessary remained. Wegner, for example, created more than 500 chairs in his lifetime, each shaped to follow the natural position of the body. His wishbone chair is still produced today, and many Danish homes have one that has been used daily for 50 or 60 years. The wood develops a smooth patina from hands resting on the armrests. The seat tightens naturally over time. The chair ages, but it never stops functioning. Arne Jacobsen worked across almost every field: architecture, furniture, cutlery, lamps. He designed the SAS Royal Hotel in Copenhagen, and inside that hotel he created the egg chair and the swan chair. Pieces now recognized worldwide. But the intention wasn't iconic status. He wanted furniture that matched the curves of the human body and fit naturally into the building's geometry. Even the small things mattered. The cutlery he designed for the hotel is still used today. Its balance is so precise that when you hold the spoon or fork, the weight feels evenly distributed from handle to tip. To understand this design culture more deeply, Design Museum Denmark is the perfect starting point. Located near the Marble Church, the museum displays chairs, lamps, textiles, ceramics, and tools from different periods. Walking through the galleries, you see how the philosophy remains consistent. Smooth wood, curved lines, muted colors, and materials treated with respect. There's often a process section where visitors can touch raw wood. Test the weight of old tools, or see how joints are made without nails. The emphasis on craft is clear. Nothing is mass-produced carelessly, but Danish design is not limited to museums or showrooms. You notice it immediately in everyday spaces. Cafe chairs are often replicas of classic designs because they hold up for decades and still look good after thousands of customers have used them. Street lamps cast warm, even light because the shades are shaped to reduce glare. Bicycles have simple frames and comfortable seats. The goal is durability first, style second. Even the trash bins are designed with rounded edges, so children won't hurt themselves if they bump into them. As you walk through Copenhagen, you see design in use, not in display cases. In a small bakery, a perfectly balanced ceramic cup sits beside a pastry. The cup feels solid without being heavy, and its handle fits the fingers naturally. In an office window, a pH lamp by Poul Henningsen spreads a soft glow across a desk, because its layered shades direct light downward without shining into the eyes. On a residential balcony, classic steel frames hold wooden planks that weather slowly, turning silver over the years but staying smooth. One of the clearest real-world examples is how objects age. It's common to enter a Danish home and see the same chair a family has used since the 1960s. The wood has been sanded gently over the years. The seat may have been replaced once, but the structure remains untouched. This long life is intentional. Danish design aims to reduce waste by creating products that don't need to be replaced. The value lies in durability, not newness. Danish design is a way of thinking. Whether you notice a chair that has supported 3 generations, a lamp carefully angled to give soft light, or a bike that has lasted through countless commutes, the goal is the same: to create objects that make daily life easier, calmer, and more comfortable. The beauty comes from how well they work, not how loudly they demand attention. Christianshavn looks like it was lifted from a Dutch city map and placed in the middle of Copenhagen. Built in the 17th century under King Christian IV, the district was designed with straight canals, brick warehouses, and narrow bridges that sit low over the water. Today, boats move slowly along the canals, passing houseboats where people sit with morning coffee or repair small details on their decks. The neighborhood feels both historic and lived in. Residents bike along the cobblestone streets, and the smell of fresh bread drifts from small bakeries that open early. Walking through Christianshavn gives you a sense of how thoughtfully Copenhagen integrates water into everyday life. Locals paddle in kayaks between the rows of boats. Cyclists cross the bridge at Torvegade while pedestrians lean over the railing to watch swans glide past. Cafes sit right at the edge of the canal, their tables almost touching the water. Life here moves calmly, shaped by people rather than cars. But only a few minutes away lies Christiania, a completely different interpretation of what a community can be. Founded in 1971, when a group of residents entered abandoned military barracks and declared the area a free town. Christiania has its own set of rules. It is not independent from Denmark. But for decades, it has operated with a level of autonomy unusual in a European capital. The community decisions are taken collectively at meetings. Cars are not allowed inside. Houses are built or modified by residents themselves, often with recycled materials. Which gives the area a distinct visual style. The first thing visitors notice is the artwork. Murals cover many walls, ranging from abstract shapes to political messages. Wooden sculptures stand in front yards. Colorful signs mark cafes, workshops, and music spaces. Along Pusher Street, the central lane, photography is not allowed and visitors are expected to respect the rule. Soft drug sales have been part of Christiania's history, though police interventions and community decisions have changed the atmosphere repeatedly over the years. Hard drugs are strictly forbidden by the community. Violence is rejected. Residents emphasize a simple, community-focused lifestyle. Beyond the central street, Christiania becomes quieter. There are workshops where craftsmen repair bikes, build furniture, or shape metal pieces. Musicians often rehearse in open studios, and you can hear guitar riffs or drum rhythms echoing through the old barracks. Children ride small bikes on gravel paths. People sit on improvised benches made from wooden pallets. A small lake lies at the edge of the area, surrounded by handmade houses painted in bright colors, with gardens that grow a little wild. Christiania's influence on Danish culture goes beyond its physical space. It sparked nationwide conversations about housing, communal living, social rules, and personal freedom. Many Danes don't agree with everything about the free town, but most acknowledge its cultural impact. It challenged the idea of how a neighborhood should function. And in doing so, it became a symbol of counterculture in Denmark. At the same time, Christianshavn, the district surrounding it, has grown into one of Copenhagen's most desirable areas, with a mixture of upscale apartments, cafes, and creative spaces. The contrast between the two sides is visible, but they coexist with surprising ease. Exploring Christianshavn and Christiania together gives visitors a fuller picture of Copenhagen's diversity. On one side, you have neatly kept canals, boats sliding under low bridges, and organized city life. On the other, you have graffiti-covered walls, self-built houses, and a community that continues to experiment with alternative ways of living. You might see a musician practicing on a bench while someone repairs a bike nearby, or people biking slowly through alleys painted in bright colors. These two neighborhoods show how Copenhagen embraces both structure and experimentation. Christianshavn reflects the city's history and its careful urban design. Christiania, in contrast, reflects creativity, independence, and a willingness to question established norms. Together, they form one of the most interesting areas in the city. A place where visitors can see two very different visions of community within a short walk of each other. Copenhagen's royal landmarks sit right in the middle of the modern city, and that is part of what makes them so distinctive. You don't need to cross security lines or enter closed-off districts. You simply walk through open squares where royal guards march past locals on their way to work. Denmark's monarchy is one of the oldest in the world, but its presence today is surprisingly accessible, almost understated. The heart of royal life is Amalienborg Palace, a set of 4 identical Rococo buildings forming an octagonal square. The Danish royal family lives here, and when you stand in the center, you can feel how open the space is. There are no big fences. Tourists stand only a few meters away from the palace doors. The gravel shifts under your shoes as you move closer to the bronze statue of King Frederik V, which anchors the middle of the square. Every day at noon, the changing of the guard takes place. The royal lifeguards march in from Rosenborg Castle, wearing dark blue uniforms, tall bearskin hats, and polished steel helmets that reflect the daylight. The sound of their boots hitting the pavement echoes through the otherwise quiet square. The ceremony is precise and controlled, but the atmosphere stays relaxed. Locals walk dogs along the edges of the square while visitors take photos. In winter, the guards' breath clouds the air as they step in formation, the cold making their uniforms look even sharper. A short walk away stands Rosenborg Castle, a 17th century building surrounded by the King's Garden, a popular park where people picnic, jog, and read in the grass. Inside the castle are the Danish crown jewels and royal regalia. The rooms are preserved with detailed tapestries, ornate ceilings, and objects that show how the monarchy lived centuries ago. It's one of the best places to understand how Denmark transitioned from a powerful European kingdom to a modern constitutional monarchy. The castle feels historic, but the park outside is filled with everyday life. Parents pushing strollers, students sitting under trees, office workers eating lunch on benches. The third major site, Christiansborg Palace, is unique because all three branches of Denmark's government are housed in the same building. The Prime Minister's office, the Danish Parliament, and the Supreme Court all operate here. Parts of the palace are also used by the monarchy for official events and state dinners. This shared space reflects the country's approach to power: formal but not distant, traditional but open to public participation. Visitors can tour the royal reception rooms, walk through stables where white horses are trained for ceremonies, or go up the tower for one of the best views of the city. Understanding the Danish monarchy today means understanding its role as a unifying symbol rather than a political force. The royal family participates in public events, supports charities, and represents Denmark abroad. Many Danes appreciate the monarchy for its stability and continuity, rather than for its authority. This is clear during national celebrations, where the crowds around Amalienborg are cheerful but calm, waving flags without the intensity seen in more ceremonial monarchies. Royal traditions blend naturally with modern Copenhagen. On some mornings, you might see a guard walking past a cyclist ringing a bell while rushing to work. During winter ceremonies, snow gathers lightly on the cobblestones in front of Amalienborg, while the guards stand perfectly still as tourists shuffle around them. In the early evening, the palace squares grow quiet. Streetlights cast warm tones on the facades, and the sound of distant traffic replaces the footsteps of the guards. Walking through these royal sites doesn't feel like entering a separate world. Instead, it feels like moving through layers of Danish history that still fit smoothly within the rhythms of daily life. The polished helmets, the narrow palace corridors, the quiet squares, and the open public spaces all reflect a monarchy that has adapted to modern society without losing its identity. Danish food has changed dramatically in the last few decades. For generations, the national cuisine focused on practical, heavy dishes built for long winters. Rye bread, potatoes, cured meats, stews, and preserved fish. These foods still exist, and many remain daily staples. But Denmark is now known worldwide for something entirely different: a culinary movement that transformed Nordic ingredients into a global trend. This shift began slowly, then accelerated when one restaurant, Noma, redefined what local and seasonal could mean. Noma opened in 2003 and didn't simply serve Danish dishes in a new style. It rebuilt the idea of Nordic cooking from the ground up. Instead of relying on imported products, the chefs focused on ingredients from the region. Wild herbs, mushrooms, seaweed, local seafood, vegetables grown in harsh climates, berries picked in forests, and products preserved through fermentation. The restaurant's approach spread quickly. For years, it ranked among the best in the world. And many chefs who trained there opened their own places across Copenhagen, forming a food scene that values creativity but stays grounded in the landscape. Yet the foundation of Danish food culture is still visible everywhere. The most iconic dish is smørrebrød, an open-faced sandwich built on dense rye bread. The bread is sliced thin and has a slight sourness from natural fermentation. Traditional toppings include pickled herring, roast beef with remoulade, egg and shrimp, or smoked salmon. In classic lunch restaurants, servers place plates on the table with a quiet thud, and the room fills with the scent of dill, horseradish, and onions. The dish is simple. But every element has a purpose: strong flavors, long-lasting ingredients, and textures that balance each other. Pickled fish remains a key part of Danish cuisine. In small harborside restaurants, chefs serve herring on plates lined with buttered rye bread. You can see the vinegar sheen on the fish and smell the spices: bay leaves, peppercorns, and mustard seeds. Some versions come with curry dressing, others with onion and capers. The presentation is straightforward, but the result is rich and satisfying. Bakeries are another essential part of daily life. Locals line up in the morning to buy wienerbrød that comes straight from the oven. Many bakeries specialize in sourdough loaves, using flour from small Danish mills. Rye bread in particular is taken seriously. You often see bakers slicing dark, heavy loaves with long, serrated knives, the crust cracking cleanly as the aroma of grains fills the room. Modern Danish cuisine doesn't erase these traditions, it builds on them. In food markets like Torva Hallern, vendors sell classic smørrebrød next to stalls offering Nordic-inspired dishes built from seasonal vegetables or seafood. At night, harborside restaurants combine traditional preservation techniques with modern plating. A dish might include beets roasted in salt, mussels steamed with herbs, or pickled vegetables arranged neatly on handmade ceramic plates. Chefs work with tweezers, placing small local herbs on top of each dish. But the flavors remain rooted in the region. One of the defining traits of Danish food culture is its connection to the landscape. Farmers supply vegetables that grow in sandy soil. Fishermen bring in cod, mackerel, and shrimp from cold northern waters. Foragers collect herbs like wood sorrel, sea buckthorn, and wild garlic. You see this influence in small details. A chef garnishing a plate with tiny green shoots, a jar of fermenting cabbage sitting on a counter, or a bowl of freshly churned butter placed next to warm bread. Visitors experience this food culture in many ways. A traditional lunchroom where the server places a plate of herring in front of you, without unnecessary decoration. A bakery where the smell of cardamom and cinnamon mixes with the warmth from the ovens. a food hall where vendors prepare dishes using ingredients in their peak season. A modern restaurant at the harbor where chefs plate dishes carefully, using herbs they picked that morning. The result is a cuisine that respects its roots while embracing new ideas. Danish food today is a conversation between past and present. Rye bread sliced in quiet cafes, pickled herring served the way it has been for generations, and inventive dishes shaped by the new Nordic movement. For visitors, it's one of the clearest ways to understand how Denmark honors tradition while continually reinventing itself. Tivoli Garden sits in the center of Copenhagen, right across from the main train station. Yet stepping inside never feels like entering a theme park. It feels like entering a tradition. Opened in 1843, Tivoli is one of the world's oldest amusement parks still in operation. Built at a time when Europe was changing fast and cities needed places where people could simply breathe and enjoy themselves. That mission never changed. And maybe that's why Tivoli works so well today. It mixes nostalgia with constant reinvention, keeping its charm without becoming a relic. The basics of Tivoli are simple: rides, lights, performances, gardens. But what makes it unforgettable is how carefully those elements are blended. You're not overwhelmed by noise or flashing screens. Instead, the park leads you through areas that feel crafted for different moods. Quiet paths lined with flowers, open plazas with music, small pavilions where families sit and share pastries. You can hear the sound of the antique wooden roller coaster, one of the oldest still running anywhere in the world. But it never dominates the space. Everything feels balanced. A visitor quickly notices how Tivoli is designed for all ages. Teens run toward the Demon roller coaster. Older couples choose the swings or the Ferris wheel for city views. Kids drift toward the small boats on the lake. And then there are the people who come without riding anything at all. Locals who buy a yearly pass just to enjoy the gardens after work. They sit under trees, meet friends for dinner, or listen to the free concerts held throughout the summer. This mix of thrill seekers and relaxed evening walkers is part of what makes Tivoli beloved by Danes. For them, the park is not just an attraction, it's a part of daily life. The gardens themselves are a major reason. Tivoli's founder, Georg Carstensen, believed that flowers and plants create the atmosphere that keeps people coming back, not the rides. Today, those gardens are still central. Thousands of flowers arranged seasonally, illuminated pathways, small bridges over ponds, and quiet benches where you can watch ducks glide through the water. When night falls, the park transforms. Lights appear everywhere, warm bulbs wrapped around rooftops, lanterns hanging from trees, reflections shimmering across the lake. This is the Tivoli that inspired Walt Disney during his 1950s visit, helping shape the concept of Disneyland's atmosphere: clean, organized, lively, but never chaotic, and built to feel personal. Tivoli is also anchored in Denmark's seasonal rhythm. Each part of the year brings a new festival, and the park redesigns itself completely to match it. Christmas at Tivoli is the most famous. Wooden stalls selling glögg and roasted nuts, snow-covered decorations, pine trees glowing with warm lights, and a small Nordic village built inside the park. Families visit year after year because it captures everything Danes associate with the holiday season: coziness, food, and a sense of community. In October, Tivoli turns into a full Halloween experience with giant pumpkins, straw displays, detailed carvings, and evening shows. The park never feels cheap or rushed. Every decoration is carefully placed so that it blends into the existing architecture. Then there's summer in Tivoli, a season filled with open-air concerts, ballet performances, and Friday rock events that attract locals more than tourists. People come with blankets, sit by the lake, and wait for the music to begin as the last rays of sunlight hit the rooftops. If you want to capture Tivoli visually, look for the small moments. Lanterns floating above the lake at dusk, the glow of the old roller coaster's wooden tracks, teenagers laughing while eating sugar-coated almonds, or couples sharing soft-serve ice cream while fireworks crackle behind the pagoda. None of these scenes are staged, they're simply what happens in Tivoli every day. That's the secret of the park. It's not just about attractions, it's about how people use the space, how it fits into Copenhagen's culture. Tivoli isn't a museum of history, it's living history, constantly updated but always recognizable. And for visitors, it offers something rare in travel, a place where you can feel both the past and the present at the same time. A short metro ride from Copenhagen's historic center, Oristad looks like a completely different city. Built on former wetlands and open fields, it's one of the most ambitious urban development projects in Scandinavia. A district designed to show what future Nordic living could look like. Everything here has a purpose. Sustainable buildings, functional public housing, and public spaces shaped around people rather than cars. The first thing visitors notice is the openness. Streets are wide, pedestrian routes run in every direction, and bike lanes are as natural as sidewalks. Many buildings are topped with green roofs, layers of grass and plants that help absorb rainwater, reduce heat, and bring wildlife into the city. In Oristad, sustainability isn't a theme, it's the operating system. Two architectural icons define the district's identity. The first is the 8 House, designed by Bjarke Ingels Group. Seen from above, it forms a perfect figure 8, but walking through it gives you the real sense of innovation. Long ramps replace staircases, allowing residents to bike from ground level all the way to the top floors. Homes, shops, offices, courtyards, and stables all connect naturally, creating a miniature neighborhood inside a single building. Nothing feels isolated. Everything overlaps. Just a few minutes away stands the Mountain, a building that rethinks how people can live in a city without giving up sunlight or nature. Apartments are arranged like balconies on a hillside, each with its own large terrace filled with plants. Visitors often stop to look up. The terraces form a pattern of greenery that changes with the seasons. The lower part of the structure is a parking garage wrapped in a giant mountain-themed mural. But the real focus is the way every resident gets direct access to fresh air and outdoor space. Public housing in Oristad follows the same principles. Maximize natural light, build with energy efficiency in mind, and ensure that shared spaces are comfortable and safe. Many buildings use recycled materials, solar panels, or advanced insulation. The goal isn't futuristic aesthetics, it's long-term livability. The Copenhagen Metro ties everything together. Driverless trains glide through the district every few minutes, stopping at sleek stations made of glass and steel. From inside the metro, you see mirrored facades reflecting the sky, wind turbines turning steadily in the distance, and wetlands preserved as pockets of nature between buildings. Oristad was planned to grow alongside public transport rather than rely on cars, and the difference is immediately visible. Fewer vehicles, cleaner air, and streets where cyclists and pedestrians dominate. Nature is not confined to park. It flows through the entire district. Water channels run parallel to walkways. Reed beds attract birds. Stormwater ponds double as recreational areas. Even small details emphasize ecology. Wooden benches made from local materials. Native plants arranged to support insects. Open courtyards where children play safely away from traffic. On a clear day, you can hear the wind moving across the flat landscape, and the skyline looks almost weightless with its low geometric silhouettes. For visitors, Oristad offers a different side of Copenhagen. Instead of historical charm, you get a close look at how the city plans for climate resilience and population growth. Wide pedestrian zones encourage slow exploration. Locals walk dogs, jog along the canals, or cycle home with groceries balanced in front baskets. Office workers spill out onto terraces for lunch, and students ride the metro between the University of Copenhagen and the city center. To capture the district visually, focus on contrasts: glass buildings mirroring heavy clouds, green roofs stretching across modern blocks, wind turbines rotating quietly, long shadows cast by elevated metro tracks, children cycling across open plazas, and balconies decorated with plants even in midwinter. Denmark may look small on a map, but its coastline is enormous. More than 7,000 kilometers of beaches, dunes, cliffs, and shallow bays. No place in the country is more than an hour from the sea, and that shapes almost everything, from the national mindset to the daily routines of people living in coastal towns. The coastline is not one long, uniform strip. It changes character every few kilometers, reflecting the geography of the North Sea, the Kattegat, and the Baltic. On the west coast of Jutland, the North Sea sets the tone. This is where the wind is strongest and the weather changes quickly. Long stretches of sandy beaches run for miles with hardly any buildings in sight. Dunes rise like natural barriers, protecting small towns from winter storms. Visitors come here for the sense of scale, waves rolling in with force, empty spaces that let you walk for hours without seeing anyone else, and skies so wide they dominate your entire field of vision. On stormy days, you can watch lighthouse beams cut through the fog as the sea pushes against the shore. The East Coast tells a different story. The waters of the Kattegat and Baltic Sea are calmer, the beaches narrower, and the atmosphere gentler. Families come here to swim in shallow bays, fishermen unload small boats, and wooden jetties stretch into quiet, glassy water. Many Danes grow up spending summers in simple coastal cottages, small wooden houses with sandy paths leading straight to the beach. These areas are not dramatic, but they're full of small routines. Children collecting shells, grandparents reading in deck chairs, dogs sleeping in the shade of beach grass. For centuries, the sea was Denmark's lifeline. The Vikings used these waters to travel, trade, and explore. Later, the Danish Navy shaped the nation's rise and fall. Today, the maritime connection is still visible everywhere. Old harbors turned into cultural spaces, fishing villages where smokehouses serve fresh herring, modern wind farms rising from offshore platforms. The coastline reminds visitors that Denmark's story has always been connected to the waves. Danes don't view the sea as something distant or dangerous. They treat it as part of everyday life. In cities like Aarhus, Aalborg, and Copenhagen, people swim in harbor baths before work, paddle kayaks after school, or meet friends along waterfront promenades. Along the coast, locals walk on the dunes during every season, even winter, when the cold air stings the face, and the only sound is the wind pushing through tall grass. On bright days, families walk along the dunes, kids climbing up sandy slopes just to slide back down again. Some parts of the coast hold deep historical weight. At Rubjerg Knud, shifting sands swallowed farms and buildings over the years. The lighthouse, once far inland, now stands on the edge of a steep cliff, slowly eroding into the sea. Engineers moved the entire structure 70 meters inland in 2019 to save it from collapsing, a reminder of how powerful coastal forces can be. At Skagen, the two seas meet. Waves from the North Sea crash against waves from the Baltic, creating a visible line of colliding water. Painters of the Skagen school captured this landscape in the 19th century, and the area still attracts artists today. The coastline is also a playground for wind. Denmark is one of the windiest countries in Europe, and you can feel it immediately. Kites whipping in the air, surfers waiting for the right swell, and wind turbines turning steadily in the distance. On beach parking lots, you'll often see people sitting in their cars, watching the waves with a thermos of coffee. Simple moments that tell you how Danes connect with their landscape. To capture the coast visually, focus on contrasts. The soft color of dry dunes against dark winter clouds, fishing boats resting on sandy beaches, children running through shallow waves, and evening light reflecting off seaweed-covered rocks. The Danish coastline isn't dramatic in a cinematic way. Its power lies in its openness, its quietness, and the way it shapes the rhythm of life for everyone who lives near it. Just north of Copenhagen, North Zealand feels like a different world, a region of lakes, dense forests, royal estates, and towns that have shaped Danish history for centuries. Many visitors come here for the castles, but they quickly discover a landscape that blends nature and culture in a way that's uniquely Scandinavian. The area is often called Denmark's Royal North, not as a slogan, but because the monarchy used these lands as retreats, hunting grounds, and political strongholds for generations. The most striking landmark is Frederiksborg Castle in Hillerød, a Renaissance masterpiece built across 3 small islands on a lake. Completed in the early 1600s under King Christian IV, it remains one of the most impressive royal residences in Scandinavia. The moment you walk across the bridge toward the entrance, you feel the scale. Copper roofs, red brick walls detailed with stone carvings, and towers rising above calm water. Inside, long galleries display centuries of Danish history through paintings, tapestries, and portraits. The Chapel of Orders, with its intricate woodwork and gold accents, is still used for ceremonies today. Outside, the Baroque gardens stretch in precise patterns, fountains running in straight lines, trimmed hedges forming geometric shapes, and viewing terraces overlooking the lake. The reflections of the castle in still water are one of the region's most photographed sites. A short drive away, in Helsingør, stands Kronborg Castle, a fortress so important that UNESCO added it to the World Heritage List. Built to control the Øresund Strait and collect tolls from passing ships, Kronborg was once a symbol of Danish power. Today, its thick walls and high ramparts feel peaceful, but you can still sense its strategic past as you walk along the defensive bastions facing Sweden. Kronborg is also known worldwide because Shakespeare used it as the setting for Hamlet. Visitors can walk through the grand halls mentioned in the play, including the ballroom and the dark casemates below the castle. The connection to Hamlet is part of the experience, but not exaggerated. It's simply one layer of history in a fortress that witnessed wars, trade, and royal ceremonies for hundreds of years. Beyond the castles, North Zealand offers a landscape that makes the region special. Large forests such as Gribskov and Store Dyrehav are crisscrossed by trails once used for royal hunts. These forests are now protected areas, home to deer, owls, and quiet lakes hidden under tall trees. Villages like Fredensborg, Humlebæk, and Gilleleje have a slower rhythm, with bakeries opening early, people cycling to lakes for morning swims, and small harbors where fishing boats return with fresh catch. For visitors, North Zealand is easy to navigate. Trains run directly from Copenhagen to Hillerød and Helsingør, and the main sites are connected by bus routes and walking paths. Frederiksborg Castle takes several hours to explore properly, while Kronborg offers guided tours, rampart walks, and exhibitions inside the old barracks. Many travelers combine both castles in one day, then end the afternoon on the Helsingør waterfront, watching ferries cross toward Sweden. The region is especially beautiful in summer, when the forests turn deep green, and the lake surfaces stay perfectly still in the morning. But autumn and winter have their own appeal. Mist hanging over the gardens of Frederiksborg, sea winds blowing across the walls of Kronborg, and cafes offering hot drinks near the harbors. North Zealand is not just a collection of historical sites. It's a region where nature and culture meet seamlessly, where you can spend the morning walking through royal halls and the afternoon crossing a forest trail with only birdsong in the background. For many travelers, this balance is what makes North Zealand one of Denmark's most memorable areas. Aarhus is Denmark's second largest city, but it feels younger than its size suggests. With a large university, a creative arts scene, and streets filled with cyclists, it has the energy of a place that's constantly reinventing itself. It's smaller and calmer than Copenhagen, yet full of activity, concerts, exhibitions, student hangouts, and modern architecture built right next to historic neighborhoods. Travelers often describe Aarhus as a city where everything is within reach, and where the atmosphere shifts from academic to cultural to coastal within just a few minutes' walk. Much of the city's identity comes from its university life. Aarhus University is one of Scandinavia's oldest and most respected institutions, and its campus, a collection of yellow brick buildings surrounded by green lawns and a lake, sits right inside the city. Thousands of students bike between lectures, fill cafes in the Latin Quarter, and gather along the river that cuts through the center. Their presence shapes the rhythm of the city. Affordable restaurants, music venues, bookshops, and bars that stay open late. On weekdays, you'll see students studying outside when the weather is good. On weekends, they spill into the streets to meet friends or attend cultural events. Aarhus is also a strong cycling city. Bike lanes are wide and well-marked, and distances are short enough that riding becomes the easiest way to get around. Visitors notice immediately how natural it feels. Parents biking with children in cargo bikes, students moving in long lines toward campus, and office workers cycling home with groceries. The city's coastline and parks make cycling even more appealing, encouraging people to move between neighborhoods without needing a car. One of Aarhus's most famous attractions is the Eros Aarhus Art Museum, recognized worldwide for its circular rooftop walkway, your rainbow panorama. Designed by Olafur Eliasson, the installation lets visitors walk through a continuous ring of colored glass. From inside, the city appears in shifting hues: red, blue, yellow, green, and the light changes across people's faces as they move. It's one of Denmark's most photographed spaces, but it's also a place where visitors slow down to absorb the view from every angle. Inside the museum, exhibitions cover everything from classical paintings to contemporary installations, often pushing visitors to think about art in unexpected ways. Nearby, the waterfront district showcases the city's modern side. Duk 1, the main library and cultural center, is a large, light-filled building right next to the harbor. It's designed as a community hub. Families come for events, students work at long tables overlooking the water, and locals meet on the broad outdoor steps that double as a public plaza. Trams pass quietly in front of the building, and the harbor stretches out with walking paths, sculptures, and swimmers diving from wooden platforms in summer. For a glimpse into Denmark's past, visitors head to Den Gammelby, the Old Town, an open-air museum where historic buildings from across the country have been reconstructed. It's more than a collection of houses. It's a living environment where actors bake bread, repair tools, or demonstrate crafts, depending on the season. You can walk through streets from the 1800s, explore 20th century apartments, and see how Danish life changed over time. It's informative without feeling staged, and many visitors spend longer than expected exploring the details. Food is another part of Aarhus's appeal. The city has multiple food halls, like Aarhus Street Food and Central Food Market, where stalls serve dishes from around the world at student-friendly prices. Outdoor seating, communal tables, and a relaxed atmosphere make these places popular from midday until late at night. Street culture is visible everywhere: performers along the river, small boutiques in the Latin Quarter, local designers selling prints, and cafes where people sit outside even when the weather is cold. Aarhus may be Denmark's second city, but it feels complete in its own way. It balances youthful energy with cultural depth, making it a place where visitors can explore art, history, modern architecture, and everyday Danish life all in the same day. Central Jutland is a landscape shaped by water, wind, and time. It doesn't shout for attention the way mountains or coastlines do. Instead, it invites you in quietly, through long forests, gentle hills, and lakes that glow like polished glass on a calm summer morning. This region is Denmark's green heart, a place where Danes come to disconnect, breathe, and move at the natural pace of the outdoors. The Silkeborg Lakes form the centerpiece of this world. Spread like a chain of blue pearls across the landscape, they are connected by slow-moving streams and forested banks that make them ideal for kayaking and canoeing. On any given day, from spring to early autumn, you'll see bright red and yellow canoes gliding through the water, never fast, always steady, carrying families, friends, and couples who stop occasionally to rest on small sandy stretches or drift beneath overhanging trees. The lake surfaces are often so still that the sky reflects perfectly, creating the illusion of paddling through clouds. This sense of double worlds, water and sky, defines the mood of Silkeborg. Calm, open, deeply Danish. Above the lakes rises Himmelbjerget, once believed to be the highest point in the country. The truth is less important than the symbolism. For more than a century, Danes have climbed this hill not for bragging rights, but for tradition. Paths wind through pine and hardwood forests, the scent of resin heavy in the air. Pine needles soften each step, creating a quiet, cushioned rhythm as hikers make their way toward the top. The hill offers one of the region's best views. Layers of forests and lakes stretching into the misty distance, towns and villages appearing only as hints among the trees. Outdoor activities are woven into daily life here. Danes love to be outside, not for extreme sports, but for balance. Nature is seen as an everyday companion rather than a weekend destination. Forest schools bring children into the woods to learn about plants, insects, and the changing seasons. Retirees gather for morning walks on marked trails. Teenagers sit by the lakeshore, legs dangling above mirrored water, talking about everything and nothing. The outdoors functions as a meeting place, a classroom, a quiet refuge. Hiking trails crisscross the region, offering routes that pass through dense spruce forests, stretch along lake edges, and open into clearings dotted with wildflowers. Canoe routes are equally well marked, enabling multi-day journeys where you paddle by day and camp by the water at night. The Danish notion of friluftsliv, living freely in nature, feels alive and accessible here. It's not about wilderness survival. It's about stepping into a landscape that encourages calm curiosity. The area around Silkeborg blends natural beauty with small-town warmth. Cafes by the river serve pastries and open sandwiches, and it's common to see cyclists, students, workers, families, crossing the old bridges on their way into town. As evening approaches, sunlight filters through birch leaves, creating flickering patterns on the ground. Boats return to shore. Campfires spark to life in designated fire pits. There's a softness to the closing of day in central Jutland, a sense of winding down that feels instinctively right. The region is defined by its textures, the sheen of wet stones near a lakeshore, the feathery fall of pine needles, the deep greens of spruce set against the silver shimmer of birch trunks. And always the water, sometimes glassy, sometimes dark and rippled by wind, reflecting the landscape in slow, shifting patterns. Viking Denmark is not a theme park fantasy of horned helmets and wild warriors. It's a textured, evidence-based story built from soil, seawater, and centuries of careful archaeology. The Viking Age still shapes the Danish imagination. Not as nostalgia for conquest, but as a reminder of craftsmanship, mobility, and community. To explore this legacy today is to move between museums, reconstructed ships, and landscapes that still echo with the rhythm of the past. The best place to begin is the National Museum in Copenhagen, home to some of the world's most important Viking artifacts. Inside, glass cases hold silver arm rings, rune stones, ritual objects, and the tools of everyday survival. What emerges from these displays is a portrait of a society far more complex than the stereotypes suggest. There were farmers, traders, shipbuilders, artisans, and political leaders. Long-distance travel was common. Evidence of coins from Baghdad, silk from Central Asia, and amber from the Baltic tells a story of global networks long before the idea of globalization existed. The museum does not romanticize the era, but it does give space to the creativity and adaptability that defined it. To understand the Vikings on their own terms, though, you need to go to Roskilde. The Viking Ship Museum stands at the edge of Roskilde Fjord, where 5 original ships, deliberately sunk 1,000 years ago to block invading forces, were recovered and painstakingly restored. Inside the hall, the reconstructed hulls rise like giant ribs of ancient whales, their oak timbers dark and imprinted with the wear of centuries. Each ship tells a different story. A warship built for speed and power, a trading vessel designed for long voyages, a smaller boat used in everyday life. Together, they reveal a maritime culture that mastered both the art and the strategy of seafaring. Just outside, the museum's boatyard brings the past to life. Here, modern craftsmen work exactly as Viking shipbuilders once did, using traditional tools, bending planks with heat and water, and shaping hulls by eye. The smell of fresh-cut oak hangs in the air. Wood chips pile at workers' feet. Visitors watch as a new ship takes shape, guided by archaeological research and old techniques. These aren't just replicas, they're experiments. By building and sailing them, researchers learn how fast the ships were, how many people they carried, and what it felt like to navigate the fjords and open seas. It's archaeology as practice, not just theory. Across Denmark, living history sites recreate aspects of Viking daily life, not as theatrical spectacles, but as serious teaching environments. At places like Ribe Viking Center or Leisre's Land of Legends, reenactors forge iron over hot coals, shape bone and antler into tools, bake flatbreads, and weave textiles with natural dyes. The scenes are immersive but grounded. No cartoonish costumes, no exaggerated violence. Instead, they focus on community, craftsmanship, and the rhythms that structured Viking households. The clang of a hammer on metal, the whoosh of a bellows, the smell of tar and smoke. These sensory details bring history close enough to touch. Modern Danes relate to their Viking heritage with a blend of pride, humor, and realism. School children learn about expeditions and exploration, but also about domestic life, social structures, and the hardships of the era. Popular culture leans into the fun, Viking mascots, sports team names, and the occasional themed festival. But there's a growing effort to avoid cliches. Scholars and museums emphasize nuance. The Vikings were not only raiders, but also farmers, navigators, and skilled artisans. Their society was surprisingly democratic in some aspects, with assemblies, ting, where free people debated laws and settled disputes. Standing at the Roskilde boatyard, watching craftsmen restore a 1,000-year-old vessel, you begin to understand why the Viking Age still feels alive in Denmark. It's not about glorifying the past, it's about appreciating the ingenuity, courage, and craftsmanship that helped shape a small country into a maritime nation whose influence reached far beyond its shores. Odense, Denmark's third largest city, carries the quiet confidence of a place built around stories. It's not loud or hurried. It invites you to slow down, to wander, to pay attention to the small details. Exactly the qualities that made Hans Christian Andersen, its most famous son, into one of the world's great storytellers. To walk through Odense is to walk through the textures of his childhood. Cobblestones, timbered houses, small gardens, and the sense that imagination lives around every corner. Andersen was born here in 1805, in a simple yellow house on Munkemolestrade. The building still stands, carefully preserved, and forms part of the Hans Christian Andersen Museum complex. Inside, his early life comes into focus through artifacts, drawings, and excerpts from letters. You see the modest rooms where a young boy, son of a shoemaker and a washerwoman, first discovered the magic of reading and theater. These spaces feel intimate, almost fragile, as if the walls are still holding the echoes of his earliest dreams. Near the birthplace is the newer Hans Christian Andersen house, an architectural contrast to the old town. Modern, airy, filled with light and interactive installations. It doesn't just tell Andersen's story. It pulls visitors into the worlds he created. Scenes from his tales, The Little Mermaid, the Snow Queen, the Ugly Duckling glow through projections, soundscapes, and shadow play. Instead of walking through a static museum, you wander through a forest of imagination. Here, Andersen isn't a distant literary figure. He becomes a guide. His own words, lifted from journals and manuscripts, float across walls and whisper through headphones. But Odense's magic lies in how the real city quietly shaped his fiction. The old town, with its half-timbered buildings and leaning walls, feels like something drawn by Andersen himself. Narrow cobblestone lanes twist between houses painted in warm yellows, reds, and browns. Small courtyards hide behind wooden doors. It isn't hard to imagine young Hans Christian weaving stories out of the characters he saw here. A lonely figure walking home late at night. A stubborn goose hissing from a yard. A candle flickering in a tiny window. These details appear again and again in his writing. Not copied exactly, but transformed into fairy tale elements. The city's river, Odense, also plays a quiet role in his imagination. Today you can stroll along its banks or take a slow boat ride beneath leafy branches. In Andersen's time, the river was a lifeline of the town, filled with tradesmen, fishermen, and families gathering by the water. The gentle curves of the path, the soft rustle of reeds. These scenes echo the watery atmospheres in tales like The Little Mermaid or The Marsh King's Daughter. Odense was his first world, and he carried it with him everywhere. The city honors him without turning itself into a theme park. Instead, it chooses subtle, almost poetic gestures. Silhouettes of characters tucked into street signs. Bronze statues in small squares. Quotes engraved into pavements. You might pass by a school playground decorated with motifs from the tinderbox. Or a cafe named after one of his heroines. These touches feel organic, woven naturally into the city, rather than imposed on it. A visit to Odense also means exploring the quarter of Funen village, a living history museum on the outskirts of town. This open-air space recreates rural 19th century life with thatched farms, old tools, livestock, and staff dressed in period clothing. It's not directly about Andersen, yet it gives context to the landscape and traditions that shaped his worldview. Walking through its gardens and farmyards can feel like stepping into the background of his stories. Quiet ponds, crooked trees, smoke curling from chimneys. Funen, known across Denmark as the Garden of the Country, earns that title the moment you step onto its gentle landscape. The island sits between Zealand and Jutland, and everything about it feels softer. Its rolling hills, its mild maritime weather, its small villages tucked between fields. This is rural Denmark at its most idyllic. Farms that have been run by the same families for generations. Orchards heavy with apples and plums, and manor houses surrounded by trimmed hedges and calm lakes. Agriculture has always been at the heart of Funen. The soil is famously fertile, and from spring to autumn the island becomes a tapestry of colors. Yellow rapeseed fields, green pastures, rows of berry plants, and fruit trees stretching toward the horizon. Visitors often begin by exploring one of the many farm shops, where shelves are stacked with local cheeses, honey, jams, and fresh vegetables pulled from the earth that same morning. Funen's produce is so distinctive that many Copenhagen restaurants proudly advertise ingredients from Funen. The island's orchards are especially iconic. In late summer and early autumn, apple trees bend under the weight of fruit and the air smells faintly sweet, ripe apples mixed with sun-warmed grass. Many farms welcome visitors to pick their own fruit, wander through gardens, or sample cider made using traditional methods. It's a simple ritual, but it captures what makes Funen special. Life here moves at a slower, more grounded rhythm. Scattered among the farms are some of Denmark's most elegant manor houses. Places like Egeskov Castle, with its Renaissance architecture and surrounding parkland, feel almost timeless. Wide lawns stretch toward water-filled moats, while old beech trees create tunnels of shade. Egeskov's gardens are a destination in themselves. Rose beds, hedge mazes, ferns, and ponds where dragonflies skim the surface. Other estates, such as Broholm or Holkenhaven, tell quieter story of noble families, changing agricultural practices, and the long history of rural Danish life. Many manors have opened their doors to visitors with museums, cafes, or small inns. Funen's villages add another layer of charm. They are small, often just a cluster of houses, a church with a white steeple, and a local bakery where the morning queue starts early. Cobblestone streets lead to squares where neighbors still know one another by name. In places like Faaborg, Kerteminde, and Svendborg, fishing boats line the harbors and old warehouses now host cultural events or seafood restaurants. These towns are not preserved as museums. They are living communities where the old and new naturally coexist. The island's mild climate allows outdoor life to flourish for much of the year. On warm days, cyclists move along country roads that weave between open fields and hedgerows. Families load picnic baskets into bike trailers, while locals use the island's extensive bike routes to commute between towns. The landscape is gentle enough for beginners, yet varied enough to keep seasoned cyclists entertained with small hills, coastal views, and forest paths. Food plays a central role in any visit to Funen. The island is known for its smoked cheeses, fresh seafood, and vegetables grown just a few kilometers from where they're served. In Svendborg, the Kulinarisk Sidfin Food Festival celebrates regional flavors, while small roadside stands offer everything from new potatoes to homemade jams. Eating here feels intimate, like you're being invited into the island's rhythm. The sensory moments of Funen linger. Apple trees casting shadows on late summer afternoons. Cyclists passing silently through golden fields. The smell of fresh bread drifting from a village bakery. Swans gliding across a manor lake. Funen doesn't overwhelm you with grand landscapes or dramatic cliffs. Instead, it offers a quieter kind of beauty. One built on gardens, tradition, and the warm simplicity of Danish rural life. Just south of Funen, a chain of small islands stretches across shallow, sheltered waters. This is the South Funen archipelago, dozens of inhabited and uninhabited islands connected by ferries, old sailing routes, and a culture shaped entirely by the sea. Life here moves at a different speed. Days revolve around tides, weather forecasts, and the soft hum of ferry engines making their way from one harbor to the next. Island hopping usually begins in Svendborg, the maritime heart of the region. From here, ferries fan out to places like Aro, Drejo, Skaro, Strino, and several others. Each island has its own identity, but they share something unmistakable, a sense of calm that settles in the moment you step off the boat. No highways, no rush, only narrow roads, small harbors, wooden jetties, and wide views across flat, glittering water. Aro is the archipelago's best-known island, famous for its colorful beach huts and old captain's houses. Aroskobing, one of Denmark's most beautifully preserved towns, looks almost unchanged since the 18th century. Cobbled streets wind between pastel-colored buildings, many leaning slightly after centuries of storms and salt air. In the harbor, tall-masted wooden ships still sail in summer, operated by volunteers who keep the old maritime traditions alive. Cycling is the best way to explore. Gentle coastal roads curve past rolling fields, stone fences, and tiny villages where time seems to pause. Evening light here is soft, almost golden, reflecting off calm waters as locals take their after-dinner walk along the shoreline. A short ferry ride away is Drejo. Smaller and far quieter. It has only one village, a handful of farms, and wide stretches of open land. The pace is slow enough that you hear everything. The crunch of gravel under bicycle tires, the distant call of seabirds, the breeze moving through tall grass. Drejo is known for its connection to the sea. Fishing boats, small jetties, and locals who still gather at the harbor to talk while the ferry unloads a few cars and bicycles. Visitors often come for long walks along the coastal paths, where the water is so shallow and clear that you can see fish moving between patches of seaweed. Skaro is even smaller, but it carries an outsized reputation thanks to its food culture. The island is home to Skaro ice, made with local ingredients and served to passengers on international flights. An unusual claim for a tiny Danish island. Skaro's harbor is as low-key as it gets. A few fishing boats, a little cafe, and picnic tables facing the sea. From the moment the ferry ramp lowers, you feel how close the community is. Locals wave to arriving visitors. Children run along the pier, and the island settles into a peaceful rhythm that encourages you to slow down, breathe, and simply look around. Forest patches, meadows, and old farmhouses form a landscape that's easy to explore on foot. Ferry culture ties all these islands together. The boats are not just transportation, they are lifelines. On deck, you see families returning home with groceries, cyclists planning their route, and older residents greeting the crew by name. The crossings are short, often just 30 to 70 minutes, but they create a ritual. The sight of the ferry approaching, the sound of chains clanking as the ramp lowers, and the small shuffle of passengers stepping onto the pier. For many visitors, these simple transitions become some of the most memorable moments. The archipelago's harbors are small but full of character. Colorful wooden houses, old warehouses turned into cafes, ropes and nets drying in the sun. At dusk, boats sway gently in still water while seabirds settle on the rocks. Coastal paths lead past grazing sheep, patches of wildflowers, and hidden beaches where the only sound is the tide sliding over sand. The South Funen archipelago is not about sights you check off. It's about the slow accumulation of quiet scenes. Ferries gliding across silver water, houses painted in cheerful blues and reds, bicycles leaning against wooden fences, and long evenings where the horizon seems to stretch forever. Here, travel becomes simple again. Unhurried, connected to nature, shaped by small details that stay with you long after you leave. On Denmark's western edge, where land, sky, and sea stretch into one open horizon, you find one of the country's most atmospheric regions, Ribe, and the Wadden Sea National Park. This is the far west of Denmark, windswept, spacious, shaped by tides and storms. It feels like a frontier, yet it's also home to Denmark's oldest town, a place where medieval streets and Viking history meet the ever-changing rhythms of nature. Ribe dates back to the early 700s, making it older than most European capitals. Walking through the town center feels like moving through a preserved timeline. Narrow cobblestone lanes, half-timbered houses leaning slightly after centuries of wind, and the towering Ribe Cathedral rising above it all. The cathedral's observation platform offers a wide view over the flat marshlands, fields, farms, winding rivers, and the faint outlines of the Wadden Sea. In the distance, Ribe at dusk is especially memorable. Gas lamps flicker along the streets, giving the town a warm amber glow. Wooden shutters creak softly when the wind hits, and you hear footsteps echoing as people walk home from the cafes and small restaurants that circle the main square. The town isn't staged or overly polished. It feels lived in. Shops close early. Locals greet each other by name. History is present, but not in a museum sense. It's simply part of everyday life. A short drive from Ribe, the landscape opens into the vastness of Wadden Sea National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of Europe's most important tidal ecosystems. Here, the tide doesn't just rise and fall, it transforms the entire environment. Twice a day, the sea pulls back so far that endless mudflats, sandbars, and channels become exposed, stretching to the horizon. Hours later, the water returns, bringing seals, fish, and thousands of migrating birds. The scale of the Wadden Sea is humbling. When the tide is out, you can stand on wide open flats where the wet sand reflects the sky like a mirror. Small rivulets carve patterns across the mud. Wind carries the sound of distant birds, and the ground beneath your feet feels firm yet alive, dotted with tiny worms and shells. Guided tours take visitors across these tidal landscapes, explaining how this fragile system supports millions of migratory birds traveling along the East Atlantic Flyway. One of the region's most spectacular natural events is the Black Sun, Sort Sol. Each spring and autumn, enormous flocks of starlings, sometimes numbering in the millions, gather above the marshes at sunset. They twist and spiral in coordinated movements, forming shifting shapes in the sky. Waves, clouds, rings, in sudden dark bursts that look almost like smoke. The sound of thousands of wings beating together mixes with the low calls of the birds, and for a few minutes the sky becomes a moving canvas. The starlings perform these formations to confuse predators, but the result feels almost theatrical. Crowds stand quietly along the dikes, bundled in coats, watching the birds dance against an orange and purple horizon. Beyond the starlings, the Wadden Sea is home to large colonies of seals, which often rest on sandbars during low tide. Boat trips take visitors close enough to see them lounging in the sun or sliding into the water with smooth, effortless movements. The park's visitor centers provide exhibitions on tides, wildlife, and local history, helping you understand how people have lived with these shifting waters for centuries. Life in the Far West has always required adaptation. Houses built on higher ground, dikes maintained year-round, villages shaped around the patterns of weather and tides. But this relationship with nature is precisely what defines the region. In Ribe and the Wadden Sea, you see Denmark's past and present in one frame. Medieval streets lit by soft gas lamps, wide-open tidal flats stretching into the distance, and the evening sky filled with swirling starlings. It's a landscape that invites quiet observation, patience, and a sense of respect for forces far older and larger than us. Billund, in the heart of Jutland, might seem like an ordinary Danish town at first glance, but it's the birthplace of one of the country's most famous exports, Lego. Here, creativity is not just encouraged, it's built into the culture. From the early workshops of Ole Kirk Christensen to the global phenomenon of Lego bricks, Billund has become a hub where imagination and design intersect, and where play is recognized as a serious skill. The story begins in 1932, when Christensen, a carpenter, began crafting wooden toys in a small workshop. By the 1950s, the company had invented the interlocking plastic brick we know today. That simple innovation transformed Billund from a quiet industrial town into a center for design, engineering, and child-focused innovation. Lego's philosophy: learning through play, testing ideas hands-on, combining precision with creativity, has seeped into local life. Schools, playgrounds, and public spaces reflect a mindset that values problem-solving and experimentation from an early age. The centerpiece of the region is, of course, Legoland Billund, a park that attracts visitors from around the world. Unlike conventional theme parks, it doesn't just entertain. It educates subtly, emphasizing construction design and creativity. Visitors encounter towering brick sculptures that reinterpret famous buildings, cityscapes, and Danish cultural icons. Miniaturized versions of Copenhagen, Aarhus, and European landmarks fill the mini land section. And the attention to detail is astonishing. Tiny windows, working drawbridges, miniature trains. Walking through these spaces, it becomes clear how Lego reflects Danish values: precision, innovation, and an appreciation for playful learning. Inside the park, experiences are hands-on. Children and adults sit side by side at tables building their own models, experimenting with colors and shapes. Observation decks allow visitors to see workshops where new bricks are designed and prototypes are tested. The park itself is designed for exploration. Winding paths between rides, quiet areas for construction, and scenic views across themed gardens. Seasonal events such as Lego festivals and building competitions turn the park into a collaborative studio where everyone becomes part of the creative process. But Billund isn't only Legoland. The town's streets, schools, and public spaces reflect a culture of design and play. Streets are lined with thoughtfully designed benches, bright playgrounds, and sculptures that invite interaction. Community initiatives emphasize hands-on learning. From robotics workshops to art studios where children experiment with scale, color, and form. It's a place where creativity is woven into everyday life, not confined to the park. For visitors, the sensory moments are immediately striking. Giant brick sculptures towering over walkways, sunlight reflecting off colorful surfaces, the hum of excited children building and rebuilding, and parents kneeling beside their kids, fully engaged in play. There's a rhythm to the environment. The movement of visitors from one interactive zone to another, the rise and fall of laughter, and the occasional pause to admire intricate models. Even outside Legoland, the air feels infused with possibility. From colorful murals on local buildings to public art made from oversized Lego bricks. Aalborg in northern Jutland is a city defined by reinvention. Once a hub of heavy industry, it has transformed over the past few decades into a lively cultural center, while keeping its historic roots visible in brick warehouses, old factories, and the wide sweep of the Limfjord. Visitors immediately notice a blend of old and new. The skyline punctuated by church towers and modern architecture, warehouses covered in murals, and the fjord itself serving as both backdrop and gathering place. The city's industrial past is still part of its identity. Former factories and warehouses along the waterfront have been repurposed into cultural spaces, restaurants, and art galleries. The contrast is striking. Rusted steel and brick walls now house cafes, theaters, and design studios. Walking these streets, you see locals moving between offices, shops, and fitness studios, while kayaks glide quietly along the fjord beside them. The transformation is physical, but also cultural, signaling a shift from production to creativity, from labor to lifestyle. A centerpiece of Aalborg's modern identity is Musikens Hus, the city's concert hall. Its angular glass and steel facade rises near the waterfront, reflecting the fjord and sky. Inside, performance halls host classical concerts, jazz, and contemporary music. For visitors, it's not just a building, but a hub of civic life. Cafes overlook the water. Staircases double as seating for informal performances. And the lobby often hosts small exhibitions. The hall demonstrates how contemporary architecture can anchor a city's cultural ambitions while complementing historical surroundings. Street art is another defining feature. Aalborg's walls, once blank or industrial, now display bold murals and installations. Local and international artists paint on warehouse walls, underpasses, and pedestrian streets, turning everyday corners into open-air galleries. The murals vary from abstract geometric patterns to realistic portraits of historical figures, musicians, and local heroes. Walking through these areas, you notice people pausing, photographing, or simply standing to admire the detail, often alongside cafe-goers sipping coffee at outdoor tables. The waterfront plays a central role in daily life. Kayakers and paddleboarders glide along the fjord while fishermen check nets and joggers trace paths beside renovated piers. In summer, terraces open to the water, and small boats bob alongside ferries transporting locals to nearby islands. The fjord isn't just scenery. It's a functional part of urban life, shaping commuting, leisure, and social gathering. Aalborg also preserves a quieter historical layer. The old town, with its narrow streets, half-timbered houses, and small squares, sits just beyond the modern waterfront. Cafes and boutiques occupy centuries-old buildings, blending history with contemporary life. Residents cycle along cobblestone lanes, carrying groceries or meeting friends, while tourists linger to photograph the contrast between medieval facades and modern street art. The sensory details anchor the experience. Bold murals on warehouse walls, sunlight reflecting off the glass of Musikens Hus, the gentle movement of kayaks in the fjord, the smell of fresh bread from local bakeries mingling with salt air. Even routine moments, commuters crossing a bridge, students chatting on a quay, children feeding ducks, become part of the city's rhythm. Bornholm, lying like a jewel in the Baltic Sea, is Denmark's most geologically diverse island. Granite cliffs, sandy beaches, and rolling farmland create a landscape that feels distinct from the flat expanses of the mainland. Visitors notice immediately how the island's natural features dominate daily life. The wind sweeping across cliffs, waves breaking over boulders, and paths that lead through forests before opening onto wide coastal views. Bornholm is a place where nature, history, and culinary tradition intersect seamlessly. The island's geology is unique. Granite formations rise sharply on the northern coast near Helligdomsklipperne, creating jagged cliffs that drop directly into the sea. Paths along these cliffs offer dramatic panoramas. The water shifts color from turquoise to deep blue. Waves crash over submerged rocks, and seabirds wheel and dive against the horizon. Further south, sandy beaches provide calmer access to the sea, while forests of beech and pine stretch inland, often punctuated by small farms and villages. This mix of rugged and gentle landscapes makes Bornholm particularly popular with cyclists and hikers. Trails wind through farmland, along coastlines, and into quiet forest clearings where the sound of the wind and the occasional bird is the only interruption. History is visible everywhere. Hammershus, Northern Europe's largest medieval fortress, dominates a rocky hill near the northwest coast. The ruins are expansive with towers, walls, and courtyards that visitors can explore freely. Walking its paths, you see where soldiers once guarded the coastline, survey the fjords and islands beyond, and imagine life inside these stone walls centuries ago. The fortress is complemented by Bornholm's round churches, built in the 12th and 13th centuries. These circular stone buildings with thick walls and small windows served both as places of worship and defensive strongholds. Interiors are simple yet impressive, with wooden beams, murals, and the quiet echo of centuries-old sermons. Bornholm's food culture is another highlight. The island is famous for its smoked herring, a culinary tradition passed down for generations. Small smokehouses, often painted bright red or white, line the harbors of Gudjem, Svaneca, and other coastal towns. Visitors can watch the smoke curl into the sky, smell the aroma of oak and spices, and taste herring freshly smoked that morning. The practice isn't just about flavor. It's part of the island's identity. linking fishing communities to both history and daily life. Local cafes and restaurants serve these fish alongside rye bread, butter, and seasonal vegetables, allowing visitors to taste Bornholm in its purest form. The island's towns add charm and color. Gudjem is built on steep streets that slope toward the harbor, lined with small houses, galleries, and cafes. Svanica, further east, features cobbled streets and half-timbered houses with artisans selling glassware, ceramics, and crafts. In these towns, the pace is slow. Locals walk or cycle between shops, boats bob quietly in the harbor, and children play along the piers. Bornholm blends natural drama, historical depth, and culinary tradition in a way few other places can. Whether you are exploring cliffs and forests, climbing the ruins of Hammershus, stepping inside a round church, or savoring freshly smoked herring by the harbor, the island leaves a lasting impression. It's Denmark's Baltic gem, a place to walk slowly, look closely, and taste deeply. Samsø, a small island in the Kattegat, has become a symbol of Denmark's commitment to sustainability. Though only 114 square kilometers in size, it carries a reputation far larger than its area. Samsø is fully powered by renewable energy, and the transformation from a conventional agricultural community to a green energy pioneer is visible at every turn. Visitors notice immediately how the island balances modern innovation with traditional rural life. The story of Samsø's energy revolution began in the late 1990s, when local authorities partnered with residents to create a model for 100% renewable electricity. Today, towering wind turbines dominate the skyline. Some spin slowly along the coastline, catching sea breezes, while others are dotted among inland fields. Their white blades cut against the sky, a constant reminder of the island's ecological commitment. Small educational centers and tours allow visitors to learn how these turbines generate electricity, feed into the local grid, and even power homes in winter when winds are strongest. Samsø's agricultural traditions remain strong alongside its green innovations. Fields of potatoes, strawberries, and grains stretch in neat geometric patterns across the landscape. Farms integrate sustainable practices, such as crop rotation, organic fertilizers, and energy-efficient machinery. Visitors can tour local farms to see how food is grown and harvested, sampling fresh strawberries in season or enjoying potatoes prepared the traditional Danish way. The connection between land and energy, tradition and innovation, is evident everywhere. Cycling and walking are the best ways to explore Samsø. Roads are quiet, and paths often pass between turbine-lined fields, small forests, and coastal cliffs. The island's villages, like Ballen and Tranebjerg, are compact and welcoming. Whitewashed houses with red roofs, bakeries with fresh bread, and cafes where locals pause to chat in the afternoon sun. Even everyday scenes, children riding bicycles, fishing boats returning to the harbor, farmers checking crops, reflect a rhythm shaped by both nature and technology. Tours of the island often include visits to energy demonstration projects, including solar panels, biogas plants, and offshore wind farms. Guides explain how local residents actively participate in maintaining the energy system, emphasizing that the shift to renewables was community-led, not imposed from above. Visitors leave with a clear sense of how small-scale initiatives can have a global impact, seeing the island itself as both laboratory and living example. Samso is not just a destination. It's an experience of possibilities. It shows how a small community can lead the way in renewable energy while keeping agricultural and rural traditions alive. Walking among fields, climbing gentle hills, or watching turbines spin against the Baltic sky, visitors gain a tangible sense of Denmark's environmental philosophy. Efficiency, sustainability, and the beauty of living in balance with the land. The island leaves a lasting impression, demonstrating that innovation and everyday life can coexist, producing both energy and a way of seeing the world differently. Beyond the Danish mainland lie two remarkable territories: Greenland and the Faroe Islands, each with landscapes and cultures that contrast sharply with Copenhagen's urban life. While politically part of the Kingdom of Denmark, these regions maintain distinct identities. Visiting them is about more than checking a destination off a map. It's about encountering extremes of nature, culture, and human adaptation. Greenland, the world's largest island, is defined by ice. Icebergs drift silently along fjords, towering hundreds of meters above the water before melting into the sea. Coastal settlements, often small and colorful, cling to narrow strips of habitable land. Most communities rely on fishing and hunting, and the pace of life is dictated by weather, daylight, and sea conditions. Roads are rare. Transportation relies on boats, planes, and snowmobiles, depending on the season. Visitors quickly understand that Greenland isn't a place to rush. It's a place to absorb scale, silence, and resilience. Helicopter rides or small plane flights offer vistas of glaciers, deep fjords, and the occasional polar bear on the ice, creating moments that remain unforgettable. Culture in Greenland is equally compelling. The Inuit traditions of storytelling, kayaking, dog sledding, and carving persist alongside modern education and technology. Local markets feature fresh seafood, sealskin products, and art that reflects both the natural environment and cultural history. Towns like Nuuk, Ilulissat, and Sisimiut balance modern buildings with traditional wooden houses painted in vibrant reds, yellows, and blues. Here, a visitor can witness daily life. Children skating on frozen bays, elders sharing tales of hunting trips, or families gathering around warm meals, while glaciers tower silently in the background. The Faroe Islands, halfway between Norway and Iceland, present a different kind of drama. Their landscape is steep, rugged, and green, with cliffs rising almost vertically from the North Atlantic Ocean. Villages perch on these cliffs, with narrow streets winding between turf-roofed houses. The island's weather is famously unpredictable. Mist, wind, and sudden sun can all appear within minutes, shaping the way locals live and visitors explore. Ferry connections, small airports, and hiking trails link the scattered islands, inviting travelers to engage with nature actively rather than passively. Faroe culture is tightly knit, reflecting centuries of isolation and community reliance. Fishing dominates both economy and daily routines. Music, storytelling, and festivals mark the seasons. Visitors can witness traditional boat launches, sheep grazing on steep slopes, and local cuisine centered on fish, lamb, and fermented foods. Every village offers intimate glimpses of life, where human ingenuity meets natural challenges. Stone fences curve along hillsides. Small harbors shelter boats against pounding waves. and seabirds crowd cliff faces, their calls filling the air. In Denmark, the extraordinary often hides in the ordinary. The Danish approach to life, measured, thoughtful, and focused on well-being, is best seen in everyday routines, shared spaces, and the cultural phenomenon known as hygge. While hygge is often translated simply as coziness, in practice it is far more than a blanket and a candle. It is a way of living that prioritizes comfort, connection, and calm moments within the rhythms of daily life. In homes across the country, hygge appears quietly. Candles flicker on windowsills in winter evenings, their light softening rooms painted in muted tones. Families gather around tables for long meals, sharing stories, laughter, and local dishes like rye bread, smoked fish, or hearty stews. Interiors favor warm materials: wood, wool, and stone, and simple design that balances function with visual comfort. Bookshelves, potted plants, and soft textiles create spaces that invite lingering. Hygge is less about decoration and more about creating a feeling of security and presence. A pause in the otherwise busy flow of life. Cafes are another lens into everyday Denmark. Locals drift in for coffee, often spending hours reading, talking, or simply watching the street outside. Many cafes are designed to encourage lingering. Wide wooden tables, comfortable chairs, and corners that feel private yet connected. The ritual of ordering a pastry, pouring a cup of coffee, and settling in becomes a small daily act of pleasure. In winter, the scent of cinnamon buns mingles with coffee aromas, and the soft chatter of conversations creates a communal hum that is quietly comforting. Work-life balance is closely linked to this lifestyle. Denmark consistently ranks among the happiest countries in the world, partly because work schedules, parental leave, and labor policies prioritize both productivity and personal time. People commute by bicycle or public transport, enjoying the rhythm of movement without stress. Offices and schools emphasize collaboration and efficiency without excessive hours. The result is a society where individuals can devote time to family, friends, hobbies, and outdoor activity, key elements of both hygge and overall well-being. Social trust is another cornerstone of daily Danish life. Strangers are treated with respect and reliability. Public spaces are clean and safe, and rules are generally followed without heavy enforcement. This trust extends to interactions at work, on the street, or in public transport, creating an environment where daily life is smoother and less stressful. Visitors notice it immediately. Bicycles move in quiet, synchronized waves. People queue patiently at shops, and cafes or public squares feel unthreatened and welcoming. The rhythms of everyday Denmark are visible in quiet city evenings. Families walk dogs along cobblestone streets, students gather in small squares, and streetlights cast a gentle glow on wet pavements. Winter evenings are particularly evocative. Windows glow with candlelight, neighbors chat in front gardens, and bicycles glide past softly lit storefronts. In small towns and big cities alike, people take time to enjoy simple pleasures, sharing a hot drink, preparing a meal, or pausing to watch the sky darken over a canal. Outdoor life also reflects these values. Even in cold weather, Danes move comfortably through public spaces, walking, cycling, or meeting friends in parks. The integration of nature into cities, tree-lined streets, waterfront promenades, small green pockets, supports a lifestyle that values reflection, movement, and connection. Everyday Denmark is not flashy, but its beauty lies in consistency. Candles on windowsills, quiet cafes, family meals, and calm streets all contribute to a culture of comfort, trust, and contentment. Hygge, work-life balance, and social cohesion combine to create a society where well-being is embedded in the small details of daily living. For visitors, these details are as informative as any landmark. They reveal why Denmark is consistently recognized as one of the happiest and most livable countries in the world. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to check out the marvelous wonders of Scotland.